I think some of the women that I spoke to were very interested in building a boyfriend as a sort of perfect product that they can carry on their arms, sort of like a purse.
I love how you, or one of the women you spoke to, called it a build-a-boyfriend.
Build a boyfriend, sort of carried it on your arm like a purse. If this is you that they're talking about, just pack your bags and go home and start over from scratch because you got it wrong. JB Nicholas here for the Freelance News. And today we're going to talk about a hot topic. We're going to talk about the manosphere versus matriarchy, and we're going to talk about what it means to be a man. Now, I've been meaning to weigh in on this for a long time. You know, there's a bunch of people running around on YouTube and Instagram and all that, you know, proclaiming their idea, what it means to be a man. And quite frankly, they got it wrong. What they're describing is just being an asshole, being a predator. What I'm going to describe is what it really means to be a man. And one of the things that got me triggered, so to speak, to talk about this topic is this New York Times video opinion piece where they got three rich women together, Manhattanites, to talk about what it means to be a woman. You know, talk about older woman, younger man relationships. And, you know, one of the opinionistas that they had on the show was talking about how, you know, some women like young men because they can make them into a purse, into an actual little purse that they carry around like a little dog, like a little bitch. Now, that's you guys, you young guys out there that are going for this, you know, that are like running into mommy's arms, you know, just so you can live comfortable instead of, you know, becoming a man on your own. You guys got it wrong. Just listen to this for a minute.
What do you think, Jamieson? Why are these women seeking relationships with younger men? What would you imagine they get from it?
I guess I imagine that if there's a caretaking element in terms of the like build a boyfriend or curate the boyfriend or help the boyfriend grow up.
I love her right there. She's great, isn't she? She's got it down pat. Okay, she knows that that other person is just, you know, out there and, you know, on a cloud somewhere. But she's Jamieson, grounded in reality, knows what it's supposed to be, and very politely sort of call him bull on this whole exercise.
And I think a lot of what I do hear about is dating fatigue with respect to the apps. And, you know, what's being called the manosphere is something that I think is, you know, kind of on everybody's mind, and what's happening for men and their sense of possibility, which seems to be part of the story of this question of age gap relationships.
There it is, the manosphere. All right, before I go any further, let me just establish my manosphere credentials, okay? So right here, this is me at around the age of 18, shooting in the woods. Predictably, sort of, that ended up here in prison for manslaughter for 13 years. That's my boy Vic. Now, while I was in the inside, right, I realized, you know, I was surrounded by dudes, right? And, you know, all of them had their own ideas of being a man and different ideas. And obviously, because they were in jail, they were all wrong, you know? And so one of the things I realized that I needed in my life, I needed women and I needed some femaleness in my life. So this is 1992 and I'm upstate at the start of my long 13-year bid. And I started listening to Tori Amos. Now, sort of the complete opposite of armed violent criminal to listening to Tori Amos, sort of the opposite ends of the spectrum. But I did this intentionally, and listening to her songs They're really beautiful songs, first of all. And she taught me a lot about what it means to be a total human, not just a man, okay, and certainly not a woman, but a complete human being, okay? And I was able to incorporate some of what I learned from Tori into my worldview. And when I got out, I made a bunch of friends, and there was this bar across the street from my apartment in the village, and it happened to be a lot of the bartenders there were into theater, and they had a theater group. So they invited me to this loft party out in Brooklyn, 2004 now. Skip ahead. I'm 33 years old, 34 years old, living in Manhattan, going to NYU, getting my degree before I became a journalist, and hanging out with this theater group. And, they wanted me to perform for them. And I had no idea what to perform. I didn't really know about theater. They didn't have theater in jail when I was doing the bit. Now they have theater in jail, but they didn't back then. So I wanted to read Eve Ensler, My Vagina is Angry monologue. So I did one of the vagina monologues. I did My Vagina is Angry, and I stood up there, and here's some pictures of me out in my friend's Red Hook Loft, Ian's Red Hook Loft, me reading the vagina monologues. And, this is also me during that time. This is my apartment in the West Village, painting on the wall, my girlfriend at the time. And this is 10 years later, going for a walk out in Bushwick. So sort of a complete life. And I got a lot to say about how to take that raw material of man and to turn it into a man. But let's focus here on this New York Times editorial, because it's really a remarkable thing. And I'm just going to go through it, break it down into segments, and offer my reactions to what's being said.
I mean, I wonder also, I feel like in a lot of traditional heterosexual relationships, a woman who begins out-earning her partner can be seen as very threatening. And I wonder if this is sort of an antidote to that.
Yeah. I mean, again, all my references are reality TV, but I see this across Housewives franchises, seeing the woman through the platform of television becoming more and more successful. Or in other circumstances, and I have personal experience in this, I think that men are attracted to women with ambition and with careers until they understand what that means on a sort of domestic level and how much time and access they have to you. So yeah, I think the reality of that is very different. And if young men are down to be home more often and to wait for mommy to come home, then great, go for it.
They have no respect for you, and you're just a plaything. You're just a toy, like a purse, like she said, just a purse.
Yeah, it does seem like the young men are sort of coming into these dynamics accepting of the fact that they might always be in a beta role. Mm-hmm. They might always be the person who is cleaning up and not actually being the provider, as they were told this myth their entire life. That is their role, and that is their usefulness on earth.
I don't think I have to say anything about that. I think you already know what my reaction to that would be, because you're feeling it yourself, because that's how true it is. It's just, you're feeling it. And now what the doctor says next is really smart. She points out that, as a psychiatrist, right, there was this thing called the Oedipus complex, where Freud, the famous, psychoanalysis, the father of psychoanalysis, Sigmund Freud, describe this psychological phenomena, the Oedipus complex, where children want to have sex with their parents. It's sort of like this innate thing that you grow out of, or are supposed to grow out of. And what the doctor here next is going to point out is that this thing would younger men, older women, or the opposite, that's too close for comfort to the Oedipus complex for the good doctor here. So let's just hear her out.
Incestuous fantasies have always been a part of sexuality. And so the interesting thing for me is why is this thing that's supposed to be repressed and displaced wide out in the open?
Yeah.
And what's going on with
What do you
that?
think? What's going on with that?
I think that it's a sign of the decline of civilization, to be honest. I mean, that's what Freud said, is that civilization is dependent on the prohibition against incest. It's like you separate the generations and you send the person out on their own as an independent person to rediscover sex and love for themselves.
Really smart, right? So totally agree with that. That doesn't mean one way or the other that it's bad or it's good, these, age differential relationships. It just means, you got to like go into it with your eyes open, and you got to talk more about it and just be more honest. But the question for me is, where does this end up? Where is this all going? If women continue to make the gains, the economic gains, if they're the only ones who get jobs, if they're the only ones who are hired, where does this lead us in a decade or two or 100? Does it lead us to a matriarchal society? Well, this conversation suggests that it might. Take a close listen.
So we have a moment in which many, many things are shifting economically and politically and socially, and we don't know where we're going. We don't know where this is going to land. And I think what's going to happen is that there's going to be a lot of experiments in intimacy. But I think we have to be careful of the old wine in new bottles.
Yeah.
Really smart point. So in other words, society is undergoing such structural changes technologically, culturally, just everything is changing so fast, right? And it's only natural that in that uncertain, fluid environment that there's going to be more experimenting with relationships and love, especially as women come into their power, both financially and socially, and really begin running the show in society. You see all these like statistics of young men. This is one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this topic, of young men just withdrawing, almost like giving up, just becoming like shut-ins, living with their mom until they're 40, ridiculous stuff like this that, really is a problem, and we need to get people motivating. But let's go on with the talk, because I think this is really beneficial. Everybody, men, women, can all learn something from this right here.
Is this the end goal of feminism, that like women should also be able to be...
Women should be like men?
Yes, exactly.
I just hope for something else than that as a feminist, personally.
Okay, so right there, that's the first thing that she said that I disagree with, because once you start making those stereotypical generalizations about an entire group of people, you're wrong, okay? No group of people should be generalized in that kind of fashion where you're saying that because a bunch of people or a few people in that group did bad things, that entire group is bad. You can just can that right there. Stop.
Emily, is the end goal of feminism that women should just be able to act like men?
No, because men have historically been very coercive and sort of been pillaging through communities. So no, I don't think the goal should be to act like men. I think that we deserve to hope for more than that. Like in a perfect matriarchal society, women do not want to be overlords. We don't want to tell people how to live. We just want to be able to live freely and to give that right and that privilege to anyone who walks the earth.
Every statement is a confession. Give freedom to all those that walk the earth. No. That's not how it works, okay? We have the freedom to do what we want. We yield that freedom to be part of a larger society. That's what the social contract, that's what John Locke, that's what all that Enlightenment philosophy, that's what the Declaration of Independence, that's what the U.S. Constitution is all based on. That we have the innate right to be free and to do what we want, so long as whatever we do doesn't hurt other people. Now, of course, in the state of nature, where there's no government and there's no law, then it's might makes right. And, women are cave women, and, they sit around the fire, cooking dinosaur bones up or whatever, right? And bearing babies, okay? But in a society where we all agree to join, all right, for that stability, for that safety, then you don't hand out freedom. So, but I agree that the focus should be on maximizing freedom and maximizing liberties and maximizing the rights of all persons who walk the earth. I agree with that goal 100%. So, whatever's coming, all right, it can't be worse than what we already have, right? Well, maybe it can be worse, but what I'm trying to say is the women can't do any worse than what the men already did. So, me, myself, I'm cool with whatever happens. I had a pretty good life. So if women want to take over the world, that's fine with me. I have my own little spot, right, away from government, away from all of that stuff already. So I'm good. I'm Gucci. And, but that's our episode for today. We're going to try and do more of these talk shows, whatever you want to call them. We'll have guests on, anyone who wants to come and talk, chop it up with the freelance news. You're invited to come on. We can have some really insightful, take no prisoners, no quarter given discussions. So stay tuned and don't forget to donate. The freelance news runs all on donations. So donate via Cash App, that's freelance news, or on the website www.thefreelancenews.org. That's www.thefreelancenews.org. There's a donation button on the upper right-hand corner. Click on that button, make some donations, and we'll get this rolling. All right, catch you next time on the Freelance News. Bye-bye.